What's up? It's your boy Carcino here, and let's talk about it. The truth behind the beef between Jean Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal, or Steven Seagal versus Jean Claude Van Damme. Everybody been wanting to see these two fight each other, or in a movie, in anything. People still to this day talk about this, and it was like, man, you got to talk about these two. What happened? Well, let's talk about it. Coming up, Jean Claude Van Damme had a very hard road. Uh, was doing martial art tournaments over in Belgium and where he's over and overseas. Kickboxing is his thing. He had to work real hard. He was an extra in a lot of movies, and he didn't really break out until Bloodsport that came out in like 87, 88. And even then, people didn't think about putting him with Steven Seagal, because Steven Seagal came out an entirely different type of movie. Like when he came out in '88, he was more of a action star than a martial arts star. Above the Law is an action movie where he came out. He spent time when he was like 19. He went to Japan and learned Aikido. Then he comes back and he's supposed to be this master Aikido guy. So he comes back with Above the Law. He starts doing Hard to Kill with his wife, and he's the big Italian guy. And his problem is he got stuck in the character, and people started not to like him. He was doing the same thing over and over, and his movies were uneventful. Like, it's like boring. Just like the bad guy, whoever he fights at the end, he just beats him just like he beat the rest of the guy, and he barely moves. So it's like, man, it's kind of a dull end. Him fighting John Hatcher, and think about it, any movie that he was in, the main guy he fights at the end, there's never been an exciting fight for Steven Seagal. It was just as terrible as anything else. So it's like, why are we glued to watching this? Well, just like anybody else, it was Steven Seagal. He had the voice, he had the black on all the time. And this is back when he was still Steven Seagal. Now, he was choked out by Gene LaBelle, his stunt coordinator, who, him and the cast doing Out for Justice, he was, losing control a little bit and whacking a couple of guys. So, they didn't like that, too tough. And it was starting to create problems. But he didn't care. He's Steven Seagal. He got another hit movie, and that's all you need to know. And that was like one of the grittiest movies he done, was Out for Justice. So now he's on a run. Things are going well. And his career's flourish. Now, of course, Seagal never agrees with LaBelle's, his interpretations of what happened, because they said, he lost conscious and he doodled on himself and all that stuff. And of course, he don't agree with that. Now, Jean Claude has done Lionheart. He's done in Kickboxer. He's doing all these movies. But it's not getting a lot of attention from people that they thought they would be getting attention from. Then all of a sudden, talks from the Canon people are trying to block them from talking to Van Damme. Van Damme does Lionheart. He does Death Warrant with Canon, which are some gritty movies and very good action-wise. But he wanted to get to the major movie deals. So Universal ended up picking him up for a big contract, multi-million-dollar deal with Jean Claude Van Damme to make his big action movie, and he leaves the Canon people, and they were upset. And he comes out with Double Impact, 2 Van Dams. It was big money, big marketing. It took off. Jean Claude becomes a star, and now he's on the same playing field as Steven Seagal. So now people are bringing Van Damme and Seagal name into it in the 90s. Who would win, Steven Seagal or Jean Claude Van Damme? You know, before they would say, it started to bypass Steven Seagal. And now they're talking Arnold Schwarzenegger or Van Damme. And now Van Damme's hanging out with the A-listers. He's hanging out with people that Seagal hangs with, like Sly. And that's not cool with Steven Seagal. So he was scheduled to go on the show to promote his movie, and he's sitting there, he's talking to Arsenio Hall, and he brings up the fact that he doesn't believe he's learned that Van Damme is not a real martial artist, and he's not a champion, and he heard it's not true, and all of these things. And what was shocking to Van Damme is, like, before that, because Van Damme's like, what is he talking about? My records are all documented. It's like no fabrication involved at all. And that's what makes no sense to them, because they're looking at it like, wait a minute. Because they said to themselves, the records are documented. So Van Damme brought his trophies. He should have footage of him kickboxing, winning the championship when he was younger. So it's like, well, how could that be? That Steven Seagal would have this information where he can track and find out if Van Damme is fake or not. And there's the information right in front of him that prove otherwise. So on the show, what ticked Van Damme off the worst is that they were friends. They were actual friends. Like, they were friendly. Like, he met him at a movie screening for something else. And while he was there meeting with him, he sat there and talked to his wife, talked to him. He talked to some of everybody on the team. I mean, not the team, but the people there. And their wives met, they spoke. Steven never said anything like this. So it made him mad, because it showed him a different side that he hadn't seen of Steven Seagal. And he didn't like it. It was like, okay, this is the kind of guy he is, and this is what I can expect in Hollywood. So on that note, now they hanging out, and Sylvester Stallone is opening up Planet Hollywood. So Planet Hollywood is opening up. Now they've moved on past this. Seagal is not happy that Van Damme is there. Now the party is going nice. A lot of people there. Don Johnson is there, which is another one of Sly friends. And Van Damme and Sly, they hang out. They working out together at the same gym. And, Steven don't really work out that much. And he does it in the privacy of his own home. And I think Luke Perry was one of the guys over there. So they're talking about going back to Sly's house. And they're going back and telling the story. Now this part only is the reenactment of what went down once they got back to Sly's house. Now, everything was going great. And here it is. On their way out of Planet Hollywood, a fan walks up to Van Damme and wants him to go sign an autograph. Now, Seagal, who liked this chick, he was, oh man, this blonde chick with the boobs out. She was looking at Seagal until Van Damme was over there, and he gave her a wink, and she was all over Van Damme, and Van Damme signed the autograph for her. She wanted it on her breast, and he did it. And since then, Steven had an attitude. And that's what people, this is what I told that was, what caused him to really get upset. Is that the fact that women were looking at Van Damme as the sex symbol, and him in the ponytail was supposed to be the guy. So they get back to Sly's house, and this is the reenactment from that point on while they're there. Hey, yo, hey, Don. Hey, you want to play some cards or what, man? What, you want to play some jet? Hey, I just want to smoke my stogie and sit back. Now, Steven Seagal loves to lie. Like, Steven Seagal gets caught up and stuck in his roles of his movies. Like, a lot of people think Steven Seagal is Italian. He's not. He's an Irish Russian Jew. His name is really Steven Seagal. His father's last name is Seagal. They are Russian Jews. And this is exactly the problem with Steven Seagal. He gets so stuck in character, he can't get out. He played Nico for 3 straight movies. So he thinks he's Italian. So right now, but hanging out with Sly this time, Sly thinks he's Italian. So, so the whole premise of this is like for years, everybody thought, like he was an Italian guy who went to Japan. Now, while he's here, he has a tendency to drift. He worked for the CIA, accordingly to him. In his mind, even though that was in a movie, it never was in real life. But he thinks it was. It happened in real life somehow. But this goes along with how Steven Seagal is. So while they're there, he keeps saying condescending things to Van Damme every time Van Damme is trying to say something. So as they're sitting there and they're smoking stogies and talking, and then Van Damme is talking about some of his favorite actors, and he's talking about Don Johnson's movie he did. That was my favorite movie. The one that you did when you were driving the car and you had the young lady. I see it in Belgium, and I said, I love that. I like that movie. I want to make that kind of movie. It's funny. I thought your favorite actor or somebody would be more like David Carradine, the guy who took Bruce Lee's movie role and did Kung Fu, but really didn't know Kung Fu, but keeps saying he do. I thought he would be your favorite. No, Steven, I don't know David Carradine. I'm just saying I thought he would be, more of your inspiration. Well, anyway, they try to break this up. Don Johnson see that this is bad. And anyway, Luke Perry's just such a big fan of Van Damme movies, he's just happy to be invited to the house. So Don Johnson, hey, when I tell you about this, speaking of Japan, I had this Japanese broad at this restaurant, right? The Japanese restaurant, I swear to God, I'm eating sushi, right? I'm eating it right off her body. She's completely naked, covered in sushi. So I eat all the fish, and all the fish. It reminds me once when I was in Japan, I had to climb a mountain and fight a real master of martial arts. He had been trained by some of the best monks in the world. And he moved to Japan. And he lived on the top of the mountain alone with all of his students. And when I get to the top of the mountain, he says, Steven. I said, how do you know me? He says, I've seen all your movies. And I'm like, how? And you're on this mountain?
He says, because I can look right through your head and see right through your brain. And he was for real. I believed him. And I said, while I'm here, teach me.
Well, man, that's pretty intense, man. So what did you learn?
Well, he taught me how to focus my chi into my one finger, my index finger, and I can punch a hole through a living person. It might it might not look as like I can hurt someone really bad, but if I wanted to, and I put all my focus in chi, I can punch a hole in someone with one finger. I know you're gonna think it's bullshit, but it's real.
Hey, if you say so, Steven, man. Hey, I know what you could do, man. I've seen your movies like a lot of times, and I'm like, I don't know how many takes they took, but hey, man, you're flipping guys left and right over there. Hey, you see his movie?
Oh, I mean, he's incredible. I see Steven movies all the time. He's pretty incredible. The way, the photogenic and the way he does his, he has a look.
Hey, Steven, did you see Jean Claude movies?
No, I'm not into fiction.
You motherfucker! You son of a bitch! So he blows up. Van Damme goes nuts on Steven Seagal. I tried to come here and talk to him. I tried to be respectful, but he's an asshole. Every time I try to talk to him, he's an asshole. Steven loves to be an asshole. I try to come and respect your house. I respect your house, like. Hey, come on, man. Damn it. Steven don't mean nothing by it. Come back in, man. Don't do that. No, you come outside. We fight now. Come on! Come on, Steven! Oh, come back in, man. It's kind of cold out, man. Hey, sit down. Your cocaine's gonna get cold. Come on, come on. Sit down, man. He doesn't mean nothing. Come on. I mean, Steven. Don Johnson. So Don Johnson's sitting back smoking a Snogie, laughing. Man, it's too much testosterone in here. We need some ladies around. And that's what happens, Sly. Ain't nothing but a bunch of ladies. And I tell you one time, I was in a sushi bar with this Japanese woman. She had sushi all over her body. Sly, she was completely naked. The Japanese got it all right, man. I got married too soon. So anyway, this is happening, and then he's trying to get Steven Seagal to fight him, and Steven Seagal is sitting there and he's going, well, people go around challenging people, do so because they're very unstable in their lives, and he's faced with a situation where he's been confronted by something he's facing because he's living a lie. I don't live a lie. I live in reality. He focuses his life in fiction. I talk about real things. My movies are real. CIA operatives? That's what I'm about. See, none of you really. I don't know if you was in the CIA now. When you joined the CIA? I'm not allowed to talk about it, but I talk about it all the time. I was in the CIA. Okay? We have missions that we've done here in this country. You have no idea. Okay, buddy? So he can live in his fantasy fiction world where he's a martial arts champion, but I've studied with some of the masters of the world, the masters of the universe. I have seen things that you would not believe. I've seen techniques and I know moves that can stop men from breathing just by meditation. You see, I live in a reality world. He lives in fiction. We don't belong in the same room. I don't even know why he's here.
Why would you invite this man? He's unstable. His energy doesn't match. His chi is not here because he's more into gymnastics than martial arts. He's no master. So Van Damme, they go out to dinner. Van Damme follows him in the car. I'm going to follow him, slide, slide, slide. Okay, all right, I come back in for 5 minutes. But I tell you what, I want to talk to Steven. Okay? He owes me that. If you're such a karate martial arts master, then it should be easy to beat me. You can beat me, right, Steven? Come beat me. Come beat me, Steven. So he's in the middle of the driveway. So they're going to go out to a restaurant. He gets in the car. I'm going to follow you. You're going to fight me tonight. You're going to know tonight. You want to beat Jean Claude Van Damme. You get to say you beat Jean Claude Van Damme. I'm not going to fight you. I get nothing out of it. If I fight you, I probably kill you. And if I kill you, what does that do for me? I go to jail. I got paperwork. See, I live in the real world. I can't do all these things because you want this show because it makes you bigger. I don't need this. So Jean Claude goes and follows. So they go to the restaurant and slide them. They tell them, do not let Jean Claude in here. It's going to be a scene. So while they're eating, Jean Claude is outside roughing up. Okay, well, they got to come. You should leave, sir. We're going to call the cops. You got to go. So once that took place, and they got him out of there, and Jean Claude's out of there, and everybody's out, you would have thought that was the end of it. But no, that wasn't the end of it. Because that was just the end of that day. Joel Silver had a movie script. And this is how it happened. The movie script, he came there because he wanted to get the movie done. I'm sorry about that. But this was in the past. He wanted to get the movie script done because they were, I had skipped that. I'm so sorry. I went out of turn. We got to go back just for a minute. You can just insert this part back before the fight took place. He had a movie script in play that was for Steven Segal and Jean Claude Van Damme called Demolition Man. We all remember that because Sylvester Stallone did it. And the reason why they brought it to Jean Claude Van Damme and Steven Segal because Steven was going to play Sylvester Stallone's role. And Simon Phoenix was going to be played by Jean Claude Van Damme. And Jean Claude Van Damme turned it down. And Steven Seagal refused to work with Jean Claude Van Damme, but Van Damme turned it down because he said there's no way in hell anybody would believe that I would lose to Steven Seagal, and I would not lose to Steven Seagal. And I would not do that on a film. No way, shape, or form. So he didn't agree to do the film. So they got Sylvester Stallone. Hey, it looked like a good script, man. I'm going to take it. Hey, yo, I'll do that, man. I'll play a detective. so Sylvester Stallone took the movie role, and it was a smash with him and Wesley Snipes and Simon Phoenix, and the rest is history. Now fast forward to here. So when this is going around, when they have this big thing and big fallout, Steven Seagal now is at a point where things are going left in his career, and things are, he's ticking off everybody in the movie industry. Starting to become everything we told you about when it comes to Steven Seagal. Okay, and then people are just bleaming my PC right now, but after Out for Justice and Under Siege came out, and Under Siege became a big hit, he decided to hold the movie companies hostage. And they wanted to do a sequel right away because Under Siege was a hit. They were like, we hit it. We hit one out the park with Under Siege. And all these movies were successful because of Die Hard.
Under Siege was nothing but Die Hard on a boat, like Passenger 57 was Die Hard on a plane. It was the same type of movie, and both of them came right out, and both of them was hits. So everybody was just redoing the Die Hard thing. He was locked in the bathroom, and there's a wild guy on the loose who's capable. So it's nothing but Die Hard. Now, he's at this point, he ran into some Indian guy, and he's on the rainforest thing now, and he's an Indian. And now I was hanging out with a bunch of Indians, and we have to save the land and tribals, and he won't take off this Indian jacket this Indian guy gave him, and now Steven is trying to save the rainforest. But he's still sleeping with Russian prostitutes. That never changed. But still, he's got to save the land from the oil bearing people. So they want him to do this movie. They were like, look, we need to do Under Siege 2. He said, they came back with all this money. He said, I'll do it, but I have a movie I wrote on Deadly Ground. On Deadly Ground, a movie he wrote, he directed, he produced. This was his piece of crap. Now, he didn't want to take credit for writing it, so he got somebody else to come in there and basically help him with the writing, to write it up for him. So he didn't want to take credit for writing it. Now, even though he takes credit for writing Above the Law, somebody else, touched that up, but he took credit for that. The rest he didn't want to take credit for. So on Deadly Ground, where he plays this guy named Forrest, is where they were really done with Steven Seagal. Under Siege 2 comes out, and it doesn't do as well as 1, but they got their sequel out. That was it. They were like, we're washing our hands with Steven Seagal. And it was coming to a movie called Executive Decision. And they were like, Executive Decision. And Lieutenant Colonel Austin Travers was supposed to be played by Jean Claude Damme. And the reason why Jean Claude Damme ended up getting the movie role is because he agreed to stipulations. He could no longer have the ponytail. That had to go. And he wanted to beat out Jean Claude Damme for the job. And he had this role. And it was a supporting role. Like, he was in the movie for like maybe 15, like, Kurt Russell ended up being the star of this film. Now, from what I was told, Seagal was supposed to make it on the plane with everybody else. They told me that, no, he wasn't. It was his attitude on the set that they cut his role off right there and let him be the guy to die. They changed the script just to get him off of Executive Decision. I'm like, really? They was like, yes, he was not supposed to make it. He had got into a issue on the movie set while filming with the guy that plays the freak, John Leguizamo. He hit John Leguizamo with an elbow while they was, supposedly he thought he was playing around or whatever, and elbowed him, did an Aikido move and rammed his head into the wall and all this other stuff. So these two were fighting on the set, like arguing all the time, and Seagal was just physically, hurting people and, putting people in the walls and doing all kind of craziness. They was like, look, we got to get him out of here. There's something going on with this guy, and we can't have him around. Plus, the studio was kind of mad he came in a little bit overweight. He kind of gained some pounds over the years and wasn't trying to lose any of it because he wasn't a guy who was very fitness fit. So, all of a sudden, he comes out with another movie that he was working on called The Glimmer Man. And once again, Jean Claude Van Damme was supposed to be in this film that, guess who ends up becoming a producer of it? Steven Seagal. And that's when he backed out, and they have what's his name? The Wayans brother, Keenan Ivory Wayans, was in the film with him. And this opened up a Pandora's box for Steven Seagal, because Hollywood was so done with him that these movies was considered the worst movies of his career, that after Fire Down Below, he was done. Wiped out completely. Van Damme had surpassed him at this time as an action star and was getting big money for his roles, while Steven Seagal was producing and making all of these decisions and films that were going straight to video, but he kept making them. Going through divorces and everything else, then DMX brought him back to the main screen when he came back with Exit Wounds, and that brought him out. Then Ja Rule and Half Past Dead. So his career started to go to nowhere land. So Jean Claude Van Damme saw him years down the road and decided, hey, they're coming out with this movie and they're bringing back Sly. Called him and was like, yo, Steven, I'm bringing back all the guys. I'm bringing Dolph. It's called Expendables. We're all mercenaries, we got our own crew, and we all gonna be working together. It sounds like it's gonna be great. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get everybody. Mickey Rourke. We're all gonna be in this thing, baby. It's gonna be huge. We got big money behind it, baby. So Steven Seagal is like, and then Jean Claude Van Damme gets the call. And he's like, is Seagal doing this movie? Because if Seagal's in this movie, I don't think me and him going to work together. Well, I want him to be a part of it, but Steven, I don't know. I don't know. So after this, with Steven Seagal supposed to be in it, and everybody assumed he was and kept saying he was, then they was like using him for promotion, and he was upset. So he came out and actually said, I'm not going to be in an Expendables movie. I'm not expendable. I'm not a mercenary. It's not what I do. In any of my movies, I've never been a mercenary. My movies have heart. It has a lot of meaning. Now they can take this other guy. He always has problems with other martial artists. So he takes shots at Michael J. White. He takes shots at Jason Statham. This other guy, who I guess he's a martial artist. I don't know. But to me, he's just another actor. But okay. See, Steven had a problem with his role and how he would be portrayed. He didn't have a problem with being a mercenary. His problem is he wants it to be co-produced by Steven Seagal. Plus, he will be handling most of the fight scenes that he's going to be in. That did not happen. So, with that being said, they told him, they said, well, you know what? This would be great if, we can get Van Damme to come back for, an expendable movie. Van Damme would be great if we get him for Expendables, and why he didn't do it. And Sly's like, I told him it's going to be huge. And everybody wanted to see Van Damme in there with Sylvester Stallone. So when the second one came out, there was no way they were going to miss not putting him in it. So they started to say, okay, so if you guys come out with a third one, then obviously, you come out with a third one, you can definitely get Steven Seagal. And of course, Van Damme once again says, I think the guy's great. Put him on camera and all this. And he said, but the guy just don't like me, And He's like, and that's fine. He hates me because I'm better than him, you know, in everything. And in totality, and if you look at it and realistically, he's better than him. He's better than Steven Seagal. In every way, you're gonna get more action out of him. He choreographs a fight entirely better than Steven Seagal. It's just like night and day to me. I mean, I really have no big issue with them two not getting along or not being in the same movie or scene or whatever. But to me, it's a no-brainer. Van Damme is light years better than Steven Seagal. That's just it. All that Aikido stuff, yeah, that looks pretty, but realistically, I like the movies that Van Damme has been in. That's just how I see it. So y'all let me know what y'all think. Thanks for listening. I'm out, and as of today, Van Damme said somebody tried to come over and patch things up between him and Steven Seagal, and Steven needs to do it himself. That's just how it is. He needs to come over and be a man and put this thing to bed, because Van Damme is obviously not the one that has the problems. Steven is the one that has the problem. And Michael J. White will kick his you know what. I'm out.